Hello, friends. This is Mike Williams of the Sage of Quay Radio Hour. The presentation that follows is an addendum to the recent Paul is Dead discussion I had with Sophia Smallstorm. I received a number of emails regarding Bill Shepard's last name being Campbell and not Shepard, along with questions about Phil Ackrell, who played with Denny Laine in the band known as the Diplomats in the early 1960s. In this video, I will address those questions along with presenting a recent interview of Denny Laine where he adds another piece to the puzzle confirming that William Shepard is indeed Paul McCartney. I highly recommend anyone interested in the Paul is Dead topic read the book, The Memoirs of Billy Shears. The book leaves very few stones unturned and will answer many of the questions researchers have been asking for 50 years. I have no association or financial interest in the book whatsoever. I just found it to be a great read, and that is the premise of my presentations on this topic. William Wallace Shepard, or Bill Shepard, is playing the character known as Paul McCartney. Bill's surname is not Campbell, and I will cover this in an upcoming slide. Billy Shears is another alias or stage name Shepard goes by, as is Paul McCartney, Phil Ackrell, Vivian Stanshall, Billy Pepper, Percy Thrillington, etc. Bill Shepard is an entertainer who enjoys being in character and in costume, and for those who are interested, you can go to YouTube and watch his Vivian Stanshall routines. If you go on the internet, you will see that Stanshall died in 1995, but his death in 1995 was not a literal death. It is the date in which Bill Shepard stopped playing the character, Vivian Stanshall. And if we break down the date, March 5th, 1995, when we apply numerology, we see that March equals 3. The day was the 5th. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6. 1995, 1 plus 9 plus 9 plus 5 equals 24. 2 plus 4 equals 6. And we're back to the sixes, 66. There are 66 chapters in the book, The Memoirs of Billy Shears. There are 666 pages. And in Memoirs, Shepard states that he is all about the sixes. There is also new Phil Ackrell clues in the revised edition of Memoirs, and also in the lyrics of the song Rock Show, which I will take you through. And I'll wrap up with a recent Denny Laine interview, where he leaves another clue for us all, where if we follow the dialogue, he's telling us Bill Shepard is Paul McCartney. If we take a look at what Bill Shepard is telling us on page 107 of Memoirs, he states that as myself, I am still William, Will, Billy, or Bill, but my stage name, Sir Paul McCartney, takes the bill and pays the bills well too. But whether Bill, Phil, or Paul, it is the same. And what he's telling us here is these are all characters that he plays. Now, I did receive a couple of emails where people wanted to debate that William's last name is not Shepard but Campbell. But in the book, he explains that one writer, Fred Laborde, not only reported on clues we provided, so what he's saying here is the Beatles provided the clues, but also embellished a bit, making up material. It was Laborde who named me William Campbell. Laborde set Campbell as my family name. The surname stuck. Coincidentally, I have Campbell relatives. So if we go to Wikipedia to the right-hand side of the slide, it states that Laborde was instrumental in the spread of the Paul is Dead urban legend. While a junior at the University of Michigan, having heard the October 12, 1969 WKNR broadcast about the rumor, he and John Gay wrote a satiric parody review of Abbey Road called McCartney Dead, New Evidence Brought to Light, itemizing various clues, many of them of their own invention, like Bill Shepard's last name being Campbell, and the article was published in the October 14, 1969 issue of the Michigan Daily. On the internet, there are theories that Phil Ackrell was another iteration of Paul McCartney, along with Bill Shepard, or as some people were referring to him as Bill Campbell. However, based on new information in the 2016 edition of Memoirs of Billy Shears, Bill Shepard was also Phil Ackrell. So let's take a look at what Bill Shepard is saying about Phil Ackrell. If I were Phil, why wouldn't I admit it now? He was a dandy singer and a guitar player and a fine person. Who would this Bill rather have been than Phil? Their band was big in Birmingham but did not have a distinct sound that would sweep the world. Obviously, a change was needed. Although the band made many recordings, intentionally enough for an album, none were ever released. As I write this memo for the book, I am thinking about buying them now and releasing them with a vintage collection when this book stirs the interest. Denny, what do you think of that idea? Let's reminisce about the days of the Silly Willy Band, could be. The Diplomats went on without Denny in 1964 when Michael Pinder and Ray Thomas recruited him to start the Moody Blues with them. Now, if we take a look at the bolded letters on that page, this is Thomas Hugh Harriot's encoding. You can see that the encoded words say, he was a fine person, talking about Phil Ackrell, and then, I am them. So in the book, Bill Shepard is admitting that he was Phil Ackrell and he was in the Diplomats with Denny Laine. Now, the Phil Ackrell clues are also in the song Rock Show. So let's take a look at that lyric. What's that man holding in his hand? He looks a lot like a guy I knew way back when. It's Silly Willy or Billy with the Philly Phil band, the Diplomats. Could be ooh-wee. So there you go. Another clue that Phil Ackrell is Bill Shepherd and Bill Shepherd is Paul McCartney. So it's important to note that Denny Laine and Bill Shepherd have a long-standing relationship. And on this slide on the left-hand side, you can see the Diplomats. And you can see Denny Laine there, second from left, and Bill Shepherd as Phil Ackrell, second from the right. And if we take a look at the picture on the right-hand side, we can see that there is quite a resemblance between Bill Shepherd as Phil Ackrell and, of course, Bill Shepherd as Paul McCartney. And this, of course, is after many surgeries. And we'll get into the surgery aspect of it in just a bit. Now, on this slide, which I entitled The Evolution of Bill Shepherd, it is difficult for many people to get their heads wrapped around the whole plastic surgery aspect of it, because when most people think of plastic surgery, they're thinking in terms of facelifts. But when we're talking about the transformation of Bill Shepherd into Paul McCartney, we're really talking about reconstructive surgery. So if we look to the left-hand side, we see Phil Ackrell from the Diplomats, and then we can see him as Vivian Stanshall, and you can see his face is fuller, the chin has been rounded out, and then we see that Vivian Stanshall himself has changed. Take a look at the two middle pictures. Stanshall on the left, Stanshall on the right. And we can see here that there's a transformation taking place even within this character. And then, of course, all the way to the right is Bill Shepherd as Paul McCartney. So if you take a look at the two right-hand pictures, you can see Stanshall with the glasses and then Bill Shepherd as Paul McCartney all the way on the right. Take a look at the facial features. Take a look at the nose, the mouth, the chin, the eyes, and you can see where it's starting to come together now. And what you have on the right-hand side is Bill Shepherd wearing a wig. And that's why the hair looks different. And again, it's very important to keep in mind that in the book, Bill Shepherd explains that there was a lot of plastic surgery, fillers, and there was also latex. Now, to illustrate the evolution of Bill Shepherd becoming Paul McCartney, I thought it was important to show the many faces of Paul McCartney over time, or the person that we know as Paul McCartney. The top two left pictures are of biological Paul, and then all the other pictures are not biological Paul. Now the question becomes, are all the other pictures Bill Shepherd, or a mix of Bill Shepherd and another person playing the character of Paul McCartney? In the book Memoirs of Billy Shears, Bill Shepherd does state that there were other Pauls, although he was the only one with a long-term permanent contract. So you can draw your own conclusions. But I think it's important to take a look at this slide and take a look at the two pictures of biological Paul, and then take a look at the bottom right-hand picture. I think that's a great comparison. Those are not the same person. Okay, so now we're going to get into the interview with Denny Laine, but before we do that, just a reminder, for those that are not familiar with the relationship of Denny Laine with Bill Shepherd, they go back a long way. So again, we have a picture of Bill Shepherd, a.k.a. Phil Ackrell, and Denny Laine in the band called the Diplomats, which goes back to the early 1960s. And then we can see on the right-hand side, Denny Laine and Paul McCartney with Linda during their Wings days. So they were reunited when McCartney went solo and went with Wings. So let me take a moment here and set up this interview where Denny Laine talks about Bill Shepherd. It was an interview that was done by Outlaw Renegade Nation. The link to the interview is in the show notes below. The entire interview is about 20 minutes, but we're going to focus on the last minute or two. At the end of the interview, the host of the show asked Denny Laine what it was like to play with Billy Shepherd. Laine responds by referring to Billy Shepherd as Billy Shears, and we know that Billy Shears is a pseudonym that was used on Sgt. Pepper. Laine never corrects the host or mentions Paul McCartney during that dialogue. The host then assumes Billy Shears means Billy Shears Campbell. Laine, at the end of the interview, rhetorically asks, who the hell is William Campbell anyway? And what he's doing is he's correcting the host's reference to the Campbell last name or surname. Hence, Billy Shears is Billy Shepherd. The surname Campbell, as I explained earlier in this presentation, was created by Fred Laborde back in 1969 as part of the rumor. So therefore, there is no William Campbell and there is no Paul McCartney. We have William Shepherd, who plays the role of James Paul McCartney and has done so for the past 50 years. And so with that, let's take a listen to the Denny Laine interview.
Can I ask you one final question? And this is the question I was so scared to ask you of.
Nah.
Can I ask it? Can I ask it?
Go for it.
Well, okay. I'm gonna go in. If you say cut this question, we'll cut it.
Just ask.
It's a big setup.
What was it like playing with Billy Shepherd instead of fucking Paul McCartney?
Who's Billy Shepherd?
I don't know.
Billy Shears.
Ah! Billy Shears Campbell. Thank you. That's all you had to say, my friend. The one and only Billy Shears. Sir, it was an honor
Thank you, man.
to play with you. Can I get a picture made with you?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, can you cut that?
Could have been here all night otherwise.
You're an amazing performer, sir.
Who the hell's Billy Campbell anyway?
So there you go. You can see that Denny Lane was having some fun with that interview, and he was being coy, but you have to read between the lines, and I don't think there were many lines to read between. He was basically telling us that Bill Shepherd is Paul McCartney, and at the end when he said, "And who the hell is Billy Campbell anyway?" that was a wink and a nod, letting everybody know that Billy Campbell doesn't exist, that Paul McCartney is Bill Shepherd, and Bill Shepherd is Paul McCartney. And so I'll leave you with that, and I do highly recommend anybody who's interested in the Paul is Dead conspiracy that they pick up the book, The Memoirs of Billy Shears. The abridged version is a book called Billy's Back. And so I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and remember, truth is indeed stranger than fiction.
Sitting in the stand of the sports arena, waiting for the show to begin. Red lights, green lights, strawberry wine. A good friend of mine follows the stars. Venus and Mars are alright.